brace yourself, because we're getting to the roots. So we're going to dive right into it because I already have a feeling that this is going to be a lengthy one, and it's okay. But I'm super excited to have you in the basement. What do you think about this setup?
It's so beautiful. I love it. It's so pretty. I feel honored.
Honestly, when I first met you, it was just as if, I don't know, an angel from the sky. Because when we immediately... Like when we had our conversation at lunch with our friend Jessica, I don't know, I just felt your spirit. It was so strong, you know, and I just felt like, wow, I would have never known that like a person like you has gone through so much. And honestly, what really kind of got me on fire about Sarah was I saw your journey on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. You reached out on Instagram.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And she was singing and she was, oh my gosh, I fell in love. And I was like, sweetest. I have to figure out who this person is. I don't know what it was, but something on my heart was just like, reach out to her. I like knew that you worked at AE for a while. And so I was still new at the time, so I didn't know how to...
I think you had just started.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to go about it, but I just remember during my new hire training, just seeing you, you were so happy. And
my little head wraps, and I was like, everybody's going to judge me. Like
that is right, you had head wraps at the time. Wow, yes. I do remember that. And then I saw you on social media and I'm like, this can't be the same person. Like so full of life. And I didn't know your story. And then we went to lunch and it was just like
the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let me introduce you because I know people are like, who is this person? Why is she on this show? Well, first of all, welcome to Behind the Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. You are now joining the Overcoming series where we're diving into the past, the present, and the future of individuals who have gone through very significant experiences that have shaped them into who they are today. So on this episode, we have Sarah Lundry. Did I say that right?
No.
Okay. I did. Okay. Sarah
Lundry.
Lundry.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, I just butchered her last name.
No, you
Sorry.
You did not.
Okay.
It's like laundry without the A.
Laundry. Okay. Yep. I was like, after I said it, I was like, that's not right. But Sarah's a cancer survivor and honestly just found out that she's about to be an adopted mom.
Yes, hopefully. Well, we haven't been accepted yet, but we will. We're on the waiting list to become,
which is still a big deal.
Parents. Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're gonna like dive into this. There's lots to get into. So I really want to go into. Let's take a step back to, you know, Sarah. The moment you found out, first of all, what was that experience like? Hearing with cancer from the doctor that was like, this is what you have.
Yeah. Let me go back just a little bit to kind of.
This is your episode.
Okay.
Take over.
To kind of preface. So my husband and I already have one child. He's 3. He'll be 4 in March, which is just crazy to me. But we were actually trying for our second baby. And we had a lot of things. And now looking back, I'm like, I feel like God was trying to tell us, not disciplining, but like trying to tell us now is not the right time. And like our basement flooded. We were already stressed about money. But my idea was like, we have to have these babies X amount apart. My plan in my life was like, this is going to be exactly how I want it. Yeah. So we kept forcing it. And I feel like every month, there was something that came up. And with Brooks, it was super easy to get pregnant. Well, we get pregnant. We're so excited. And this was during 2020. So 2020, they were very strict on when you could go into doctor's offices, obviously. Well, since I had a healthy pregnancy previously, they didn't see me for 12 weeks. And during those 12 weeks, I was very sick, like not normal pregnancy sickness, like could not eat, had lost 25 pounds, skin and bones, basically. And so we go in and they can't find a heartbeat. And they do all these tests and all these things, and they end up telling me that they think I had a molar pregnancy. But they couldn't confirm that until they removed it, basically. Right. And this was 3 days before Christmas, so they had to immediately throw me into surgery the next day. Wow. And they just kept saying, this could become cancerous. This could become cancerous. Well,
and for those who don't know, like, molar.
Yes. So essentially what that means is there's two types. There's a partial and a complete. I praise God that I had a complete because
it's like benign a little bit.
No, it actually, those are the ones that become cancerous, which sounds weird, but partials actually develop a fetus. And so they can live, they can have a heartbeat. You can see your baby, and then a tumor engulfs it. And so it doesn't survive, basically, but you are seeing the baby that you think you're going to have. And then with a complete, no fetus is ever created. Instead of a baby being created, a tumor is created, and then essentially your uterus is just covered in tumors. So so we had a complete, which meant that we were at higher risk for cancer, but they thought that because they caught it, it would be fine. And also you can have these after having a healthy pregnancy fully, and then you can develop this disease, which is a whole other crazy thing. But so we had a DNC. They said that basically we would be able to move forward with our life, and that we'd be able to have children, and that we could, this was just a weird blip in the road, and we could look back and move on. Well, that is not the story.
Oh my gosh.
That we had by May, cancer had taken over my entire reproductive system, basically. And so we started chemo pretty immediately. And then they thought that it would, basically this story just repeats itself of like, you should be done. You're a healthy 29-year-old, 28-year-old, you're going to be fine. So we did this chemo, and my story just kept making itself look different than any other way that this looks. Traditionally, this is what happens, and they just kept saying that. And so it came back after it had went away. I went into remission. It came back within a month, and that happened 2 more times. And so when you and I met, I was actually going through a very aggressive kind of chemo. That was basically, I'm like, when you think of, I remember telling people that they're like, but you don't look like a cancer patient, because I had my long hair and I looked healthy, but I was actually very, very sick.
Like internally.
Yes. And so it was a very weird thing, and a weird thing to process when people are like, but you don't look sick. That last time was very different. And it was like, I looked as the traditional, what you see on TV, because I think there's a lot of this, a lot of people are just think when you hear chemo or you hear cancer, it automatically means death.
You should be sick.
You should be sick. You should look sick. You should look sunken
pale.
In. You should not have hair. And it's crazy that people equate how sick you are with what you look like. It's very interesting. But that last time, I was spending 3 days in the hospital receiving chemotherapy through an IV. I also have a port. And so I did that for, I want to say I was getting it every other week. For, I want to say like 3.5, 4 months, something like that. And so every chemo had been like 3.5, 4 months. So I've been going through chemo for almost 2 years, basically.
Now, there was a time too that you did have to shave off your hair. And get to that space too. Like, I kind of want to uncover that, because I remember you were telling me that it was probably the most uncomfortable thing. And yes, it is a part of the process, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. So kind of like explain what that process was like from your point of view.
I think we as women identify so much in what we look like. And what's so weird about that is, even though we say we don't want to be identified as who we look like, we want to be known for who we are, there is an element of what society tells us as, again, what you look like equates to how successful you are sometimes. What you look like equates to how sick you are at times. So there was this level of, I kind of secretly had this pride in the fact that I never lost my hair to some of the other two, which I didn't realize until I lost it. But then when they told me we were going to go through this aggressive chemo, they were like, you're probably going to lose it within 12 days if you're going to lose it. And they said if, but then it was like they took it back and they were like, no, you're going to lose your hair.
And you're like, darn, okay,
and
it's
so
coming.
I have really thick hair, which I always knew, but I guess I've never seen it short. So now I'm like, what's happening? There's so much hair here.
And it looks great.
Thank you.
Like, honestly, so rocking the short hair. Literally.
I'm just taking it a day at a time.
It just looks great.
Thank you. So I actually will never forget this. So for those of you that don't know, I have an Instagram. That's where you found me.
Yeah.
I post hair and makeup videos and like beauty stuff. So I was recording this I'll never forget this. I was recording my 5-minute makeup routine to make as a reel.
Yeah.
And you do it outside of that. So then you edit it down and make it this really nice thing. So I'm recording this, and I had my hair in a claw clip. And I take it out, and I capture it on camera of me going like this and me catching all of this clump of hair. And my first reaction of me seeing that and playing that back, I just remember bawling because I hadn't come to terms with the fact that was going to happen. And I started questioning all these things of, is my husband going to love me? Is Brooks, my son, going to even like me? Because he was in this phase of like being obsessed with my hair. And he was like, your hair is so pretty, mommy. And so then I was like, he's not even going to recognize it. He's going to be scared of me.
Yeah. All these thoughts just start coming
they're not going to take me seriously.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do a beauty blog if I don't even have hair that I like talk about how to do hair all the time? So it really put me into this identity crisis with where I put my value and who I am and where I find value. And ultimately, like, it makes me think of the verse in Galatians. It's Galatians 1:10, and it talks about if I'm looking for the approval of man, then I'm not approving, or then I am not seeking for God's approval. I butchered that, but that's basically what it talks about. And Paul is talking about the fact, like, where we put our identity is what man looks for, not what God looks for. And it made me really look and like internally dive into where do I put my value? And is it what God says, or is it what people say? And if I'm so concerned with all of these people and what they think about just because of what I look like, then they don't know me at all. And those aren't people that I want. You know?
And I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, like, I just think you said a lot that was like, no, it's good. It's so good because I already knew, like, I knew in this episode, I'm like, this girl is just going to take over because you have so much wisdom and at such a young age, like, because yes, you are still young.
31 years young, baby.
Let's go. You just been through so much within that time. And I think I think that is why you are so valuable to speak, because you have a story and there's so many other women and other people that are going through these things and no one's talking about them. So I just think, like, you hit the rock and you hit the stone when you said that, like, finding your identity in other things and other people instead of God. I think it's just the most human mistake that we make easily. But it's like, for you, how did you, like, what did you go through and how did you overcome? Because that is the whole point too. Like, just because it's called overcoming, I also like to encourage and empower people and educate them from this experience. Like, you can learn and like take it for yourself and go do those things. So it's like, for you, like, how did you overcome that process of like finding your identity, a new one? Maybe it was possibly a new one, because it's like, I got to look at myself in a new way. And that is difficult.
It is really difficult. And I don't know that I've figured it out yet. I think I'm still figuring it out, but I do think for me, my husband says this all the time, and I'm really glad he says it, because sometimes I'm like, man, did I really walk with God in the way that I should have during that time? And am I really walking with God in the way that I should now? Because we're sinful humans. We make priorities of other things. But for me, having to go back and look at, and I remember I have this like pull, and I've never told anybody this, that I want to create a Bible study that is specifically talking about insecurity and how we as women identify ourselves in Christ and not in what the world says of us, and that our value doesn't come from that. Someday.
Do it, girl. But, I'm coming. I am coming.
I think that's what I had to do. Was I remember typing into Google one day, like, what does God say about beauty? And then and everything was about the heart. Everything came down to who a person is and where they find their value and where they find their treasure. And and then there's nothing in the Bible where it talks about, I mean, there are pieces that talk about hair, but that's coming from Samuel, who's talking about, or Solomon, who's talking about the woman he marries. Like, it's not talking about what God sees as us when he looks at us. So I really had to dive into that and look at, okay, who does he say I am? And then really trusting the value of the people that I appreciate the most. So my husband, like, hearing him see me break down bald with no eyebrows and like trying to do makeup, but not really feeling like I knew how anymore. And him telling me that I was beautiful. And then my 3-year-old, who's the most honest thing in the world.
Cutest thing in the world.
He's
oh
cute,
my God.
And he's honest.
Oh my God.
And
so
he,
heartbreaker.
He's
seriously.
Wish me luck and pray for me because he's going to get in trouble. So yeah, having to lean on their opinions and what they said. And then the people that I trusted around me, like, it was so nice when somebody would be like, I love your hair wrap today. And finding identity in like, okay, I can't do my hair.
Yeah.
But what's a new thing that I can find, like a new hobby basically. And so I posted a bunch of these how to tie hair wraps. And they are still on TikTok. Like people, I'm noticing those are the ones that are getting saved the most. And then realizing that like I wanted to empower other people because I had no one to look to.
Right.
I wanted to help other people that were like me. So figuring out a way to feel like I was making my story meaningful, even in those moments that it felt like I couldn't take another step.
Yeah. So finding kind of like a new invention.
Yes.
And like a new reality.
Right.
Because in a sense, it's like you are like having a whole new reality. It's like, how do I love myself in this space?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I can tell too that you also leaned on singing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your love and like, where did that come from?
Oh my gosh.
Did you teach yourself how to sing?
Everything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to put a video up.
No.
Yes. If you approve.
I approve.
She's so good. It's so
I don't know
peaceful.
why. Thank you.
So peaceful.
I also super leaned into worship at our church because like music is my way to connect with God. I feel like God uses music so intently to bring glory to himself. Like you just know that heaven's going to be like, I say a rager, but it's going to be like, people are going to be praising, rolling on the ground, like living their best, like worshiping, singing constantly.
I've had like constant dreams of just like my version of like heaven, of what it could possibly look at. And like, that's all I can imagine. Like you said, it's just like worship and just being on the floor and just even having a whole dance party with him. Like I can't sing, but girl, I be in the shower, in the car, like
crank it up, just pretending you're Carrie Underwood.
Yes, just a little bit. We don't want to see that, but just a little bit. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I just love that you are just so authentic in your process, and being so vulnerable and like open about it. I guess for a lot of people who feel shameful, like what would you say to those who are possibly, maybe it's not cancer, but it's like they're internally dealing with something and like they don't know how to navigate or find a voice in it?
Yeah. I think for me, journaling was a huge thing because my therapist told me this when I was going through it, that when I tend to shove my feelings down a lot because I want people to see me as this joyful person, and I never want to be a burden to other people. Yeah. And she's like, but it's okay. Like you are going to hurt yourself a lot more if you push it all down. And she was like, have you ever tried writing those authentic feelings out? And so if I ever felt like I was not identifying with those emotions or like I couldn't handle them, I would just write it down, as crazy as it sounded, and then I'd rip it and I'd shred it, and then it was like it didn't exist anymore. Wow. And it was just a constant process that I did. Like if I was feeling overwhelmed, she said that there's something about when you are feeling a certain way and then you connect it so the right and the left brain actually connect, that you are able to release that emotion without causing panic or heightening it, basically. Right. So I started doing that. That was super helpful. And then for me also, like, clearly I'm a huge believer in Christ. Yes. And so to me, I just had to keep leaning on him in every single thing. And I know that that's not for everyone, but I would really challenge people to explore it, because I think the peace of God when you're going through something that you cannot explain, that does not make sense, and when you are just so burdened with this heavy thing that no one else understands, and you feel isolated and you feel so alone, knowing that the arms of Jesus are literally holding you so that you don't have to do it by yourself, is probably literally what got me through every single day. That it was like, but this isn't about me anyway. Yeah. So if this isn't about me, I know he's carrying me through it, and I know that I'm going to make it through to the other side, and it's worth it because of the people that will be impacted, because of the gospel that will be shared, and because of his impact that he will have through my story. And that makes it worth it to me. Like, so many people have asked, just how did you get through? And I'm like, literally Jesus. Like, literally
that
Jesus.
Was my follow-up question. It's just like, it's just, I think you just said a lot in a sense of like, even when you say you have faith and you trust God, it's like we have to be so careful when we say that, because I think even God has taken me through a season where he says, if you say that you trust me, then all the storms and all the, you know, adversity that you are dealing with, like, do you really trust me? And I think I was faced on with like so many situations, like transitioning to Topeka, transitioning out of my career. And it really questioned my faith in him. And it's just like, for you, it's like, did you ever have that time where you were like, why me?
I don't know that I did. People have asked that. And I guess my thing has always been, why not me? To me, it makes a heck of a lot more sense for it to be me than somebody who doesn't believe in God. Because I will make it through, and I will be joyful, and I will still believe that he is all powerful above things. And I look at like examples in the Bible that went through those things. You look at Paul, you look at Job, and there was Job's first response to his entire family dying, everything happening. He fell on his knees and he praised the Lord. Why wouldn't God use my story to bring more glory to him? And why not me? Like, sin has created so much damage in this world. God had nothing to do with the cancer in my life. He knew it would happen, but it's because we live in a sinful world. So to me, I look at it more as he trusted me enough with this story. He believed in me that I would use it for his glory, that I would, it's a weird thing to say, but I'm like, why wouldn't it be me? Why would I ever question the God of the universe and the story that was put out before me? Because his plan has always been more perfect than mine. I mean, I wouldn't be in Topeka. I wouldn't be married to the person I am. I wouldn't have the baby that I do. Like, we wouldn't be on an adoption journey.
Oh my
All
gosh.
these beautiful, joyful things that I never planned for myself. He always knew would happen. So why would I question that? He's never failed me before, you know?
Oh my gosh. So good. So good. So that is a very strong statement. You said, like, why not me? And I think if we all had that mindset of, you know, if God is, like he said, he gives his strongest battles to his strongest soldiers. And so I think that, like, if we just constantly remind ourselves that, like, if God would bring me to it, like, why would he not lead me through it? And so I just think I got so inspired by that. And I'm like, wow, that's so good. But taking a turn to motherhood and the adoption journey, kind of talk about how like your cancer played a role into that, and why you guys decided to take that turn into adoption.
So obviously mine has had everything to do with reproductive health. So there was always a possibility. I mean, at the very beginning, they were very clear, like, this will never happen. You'll be able to have your own kids. So there was this picture always painted that we would be able to. But I think, to me, I always kind of knew, which sounds weird.
Like, you would adopt?
Yes and no, but like
kids.
that maybe we wouldn't have the option to have more children.
Okay.
I think there was just like something inside of me that was like, you might want to explore other avenues.
And gotcha. It's like you didn't want to believe it, but you knew maybe like there's this seed.
Yeah, and I think as a wife, and I think there's something in a woman's nature, like a lot of women really want to be mothers, and there is something about wanting to have your own child. Being pregnant, there's something so beautiful about that. And
definitely
there is this instinct a lot of times in women that want that for themselves. And so I think my husband and I always thought we would have two of our own and then adopt a third, because my dad was adopted and his dad was adopted. So adoption has never been something we were opposed to. And I remember always joking, like, no, I'm only going to be pregnant twice and then we're going to adopt a third, which is kind of happening. So I'm like, okay, God.
Okay. You work in mysterious ways.
Okay, I got it, I guess. I mean, I didn't have two babies, but like, that's kind of what's happening. So, so eventually, because the cancer was so bad, there was a microscopic spot, which is bananas that they can even see that in my mind, that I'm like, thank goodness. Their medical equipment has come so far that they could see a microscopic spot that lit up every single time I had scans. So the chemo would impact that spot just enough to basically suppress it, but it would always come back. And that lived in my uterus. And so in the aggressive chemo, they told us once we finish this aggressive chemo, your only chance of survival is to remove the uterus. And that had never been said before. It was like, do we want to do a hysterectomy? I don't think you need to because you're only 29. Like it was there was never this, that it will happen.
Yeah.
And so when they told us that, my husband and I were sitting in the cancer center. We had just been taken back to get chemo. And my husband, again, there's this weird piece that I think we always think it's women, but it's very much men too, of wanting to have their own children.
Definitely.
And I had to deal with a lot of grief in the sense that I felt like I was disappointing him by not being able to provide that to him.
Right.
Because he chose me for a wife and I couldn't provide what, because he can't do it. You know?
I mean,
he could, but like, he better not be.
He better not be. No, but I think that's important, you know, to talk about. And I think, you know, yes, your cancer possibly had an impact in that, but I think even women that are possibly dealing with that, that are looking towards adoption, kind of like speak to how like there's still hope.
Yes.
There's still possibilities. It doesn't mean that you can't have children. Yes, it is different. It is so different. But it's like there's options.
Yeah. There are so many options, and I think you just have to come to a point with your husband or your significant other, whoever you're wanting to have children with, to figure out the root of what it is that you really want. So ultimately, Garrett and I kind of came to this point that it was like, he was like, we could try IVF, we can do all these things. And I'm like, how? I am not going to have a uterus. Like, we could get a surrogate, but why? To me, it was like, but there are so many other options out there. Why wouldn't we, if the Bible calls us to take care of the needy and the sick and the poor and people in crisis, why would we not do that? That's already here. And so we were sitting back there, and I basically said that, and he looked at me and he goes, give life to somebody who's already here instead of forcing something that maybe God doesn't want. And it was like it just clicked. And that was the first, and I mean, we're both crying, like very upset, because it was almost like closing a chapter of something we had dreamed of for so long. But it created this very real, honest conversation of like, what is the root? What do we really want? And why does it need to be from you and I? Why can't we give life to somebody and support life of somebody? And then also maybe impact birth moms and individuals who are in crisis and need love. Like, to me, that's so important. So we looked into all other options of like, what does foster care look like? What does, are we open to adopting overseas? And what does this actually look like? Do we only want a newborn? And that is very weird to go through, to like sit and put stipulations on what you would want and what you wouldn't. But what I think is so beautiful about that is that God has already picked it out, so that's why those stipulations are there. If that makes sense. Like, it's already planned. That baby's already there. Maybe not born yet, but
what I heard though is like, what I love about you and your husband is like there's so much power in agreement. You know what I mean? And so I think that like, even though if you are dealing with the differences, it's like you would hope that like you guys come to an agreement, because then you honestly are going to be getting everything you pray for. I think it's so interesting how God takes us through this journey of really trusting him. And so again, going back to just a couple months, you were like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if we're going to get in. And it's just like 2 months later, like literally, maybe it was 3, but no, I'm just saying,
we met in January. You and I met in January, and it is January 19th. Right? So not even, so it's been 2 weeks, girl.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just,
okay, God, show it up.
It just gets me emotional, because it's just like, you know, I think about the things that I'm going through, and it's just like, he's trying to teach, he's trying to talk to you. So it's just like, just wait on the Lord. And I promise you, like, he will renew your strength, and he will literally give you all the desires of your heart.
Absolutely. And if you think about Matthew 6, where I love Matthew 6 talking about do not be anxious in anything. And where Jesus just goes on this rant. Like, when Jesus goes off, you know you better be listening, you know.
Look.
And he says all the things about like, what hour do you add to your life by being anxious about anything? And if God takes care of the birds of the air and the grass on the ground, how much more is he going to take care of you? And then at the end, he says, seek first the kingdom of God and all things will be given to you. And I think about that, and it's like so many people like to leave that part out. They like to be like, okay, God's going to take care of me. But there is a requirement and an action on our part that we must seek him first.
Yes.
And I think that that's such an important piece that so many people leave out, because it's like God's calling us to action. And if we don't act, if we're not pursuing him, how can he? I mean, he could, but he won't. He's not going to come to us. He's going to always ask for us to come to him so that he can show you what he can do. And I think that's just a really cool way that he reveals himself, is like, when you seek me, I'm going to show up every single time. You may have to wait, but I'm going to show up.
Oh my gosh. That's so good. Okay. So Sarah, today, how are you? Are you happy?
Girl,
and always. You're always happy.
I'm always happy.
But what would you say if you could give yourself advice, your younger version of you? What would you say?
I am good. I am happy. I'm healthy. I'm so thankful to be healthy. I think if we're taking a step back and I look at like maybe how I treated my body in the past, I wish I would have had a lot more respect for my body than being so harsh on it.
Yeah.
I think we as women are so hard on ourselves. We look in the mirror and we're so mean, and we would never speak to our friends like that. Why do we speak to ourselves like that? And I look at how unkind I've been to my body over the last 31 years of life, of treating it poorly, feeding it poorly, not nurturing it in the way, and then speaking so negatively to it. When in all reality, this is one body I get.
Come on.
And I should take the best care of it.
Yeah.
And in addition, this body holds me, it protects me, it fights for me every single day. Like, if you genuinely think about what cancer does in a body and how it multiplies and reacts, and that your body is fighting to protect you.
Yeah.
There's just something so beautiful about that it's like, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't do it. I wasn't like, okay, create all these things to fight against these things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way we treat ourselves, especially as women, and how hard we are on ourselves. If I could go back to 15-year-old me and look in the mirror and tell her every single day, you are beautiful, you are kind, everything about you is perfect. Stop trying to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
I think, and I still battle with that daily, but I think that that's something constantly that I'm like, I wish I would have known or taught myself at a younger age.
Wow.
To have respect for myself.
Right. And love yourself.
Yeah.
I think I would agree, because I think I had a little bit of like body shame when I was younger. And I think it was also just the environment I was in. I grew up around an environment that everyone around me was a size 2. So it made me feel overweight all the time. But I think that's a true statement that, like, you know, I love how you explained it, that your body is protecting you and your soul.
Yeah.
You know? And to be honest, I saw you earlier and I'm like, this girl has lost weight. I'm like, you look hot. Not saying you ever looked overweight, but I'm just saying, like,
thank you.
I'm like,
I appreciate that.
Glowing, like, you're good.
Thank you.
You know?
I appreciate it. I've been working hard, because
literally,
again, we got to take care of ourselves. We got to protect ourselves. And I think there is this, I look at, so in 2020, I actually was the healthiest I've ever been in my whole life. Yeah. And then this happened. And doctors have literally been like, I think part of the reason you fought this as well as you did was because of how healthy you were. And I just look at so many of the issues that we have as a society, like the quick fixes, the lazy response to, I just don't want to treat my body with it. And it really comes down to, do I respect my body? Do I appreciate what my body does for me?
Yeah.
And again, I feel like that's a slap in God's face sometimes, to be like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, I don't need to take, our body is literally a temple. This is where Christ lives. Why would I not take care of it and think about the things I'm feeding into my mind? And by me saying that my body isn't good enough was me saying that God's creation was not good enough.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Like, I think it's always okay to want to lose weight, make changes.
Definitely.
Be healthier.
Right.
But, like, the idea that, like, what he created wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go to the God of the universe and say, can you try again?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Like, and it's just like the power of words.
Yeah,
you know, I just think that we have to be like super careful and mindful of like our words. And I think I'm learning that more now than ever.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
like I think Michael really ingrains that in my brain. Like he's like, you can have whatever you want as long as you are putting your mind to it. Like literally, if it's in God's way, if it's in his authority, like you can have it, you know, but you have to like be so careful in what you say to yourself. And it's like you don't realize like how negative you are until you realize like, oh, why am I so, you know, like saying this to myself?
Like, again, like you would never say it to your best friend.
Ever.
So, but it's okay for us to say to ourselves, like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I know we do it all the time. It's just natural. But I think we ingrain it in ourselves that we look at other people and be like, okay, but I want to look like that.
Yeah.
But why? Like, there's something so beautiful about, to me, I've always struggled with, I have thick thighs, big hips. I always will. I have very much like a pear shape.
Yeah.
And I've always struggled with that.
And it's sexy, girl.
Oh, girl, get out of here.
It's sexy, yes.
I look around though and I'm like, man, I wish like I looked like that. I wish I had slimmer legs,
like that.
You know?
I did.
And
then I'm like, girl, you are beautiful. Look, you are beautiful.
Yes.
Literally.
You're sweet.
We
need to say it to ourselves. And I don't think that there's anything egotistical or arrogant about that.
Not at all.
There's something about a beauty and confidence while still being humble,
you
know? And I think that we can do that and hype ourselves up, be our own hype person. And I think that's why you see me constantly hyping people, especially on the internet.
Yeah.
Because the internet is the place that people go to compare.
It's the devil's playground.
Exactly.
Literally.
And I mean, there are so many beautiful things about social media, but there are also so many horrible things about social media.
Yeah.
And that is where so many of these comparison issues come from. And like my biggest piece of advice lately, and I've been telling everybody this, delete accounts that make you feel like crap about yourself.
Yes, please.
If you see somebody and you instantly start tearing yourself apart, delete them.
I did that probably about maybe 6 months ago or maybe a year ago. I do remember there was a time where I was literally on this super fast where it was just like you said, it's like if you don't provide any value in my life, if you're not giving me anything that I want to follow, unfollow. Goodbye. Like I don't need it on my feed. And it's just so interesting because freaking like the algorithm like just tries to put it back in front of your face. Like it was so interesting that like, okay, so sometimes like, you know, you'll be sitting next to your partner and your husband and, you know, they're just scrolling or whatever. Tell me why one time, I know, since we're on this topic, tell me why one time, I'm like, it was like, okay, this is the second or third time I would peek over on Michael's phone and there'll be just like all these women, right? And I'm like, and I know he's not that type of person. And so until one day he goes, man, I know I unfollowed this account. And it was just another lady looking, you know, provocative. And I'm like, okay. I know it's not him. And
Garrett and I had the same conversation. He has so he loves sports. And so he follows all these sports pages and he'll be scrolling and it is like the things that are targeted for men to corrupt their minds. I'm like, really? He had to unfollow like so many sports pages because he was like, he goes, this deters me away from God. Like, why am I can't, even though I like one post out of 17 that they post.
They're coming back. They're coming back.
Every single thing. And he's like, how damaging is this? Like, can you imagine a 15-year-old boy? With that, I can't. And they can't filter that.
I'm not ready. I'm ready to have kids when God says it's ready. But like, I think Michael and I talk about it all the time that like, it is probably the most scariest
it's so scary
time to have kids and it's so unfortunate to say that because you just don't know, like, especially you don't know what you're going to see on TV. Nothing is covered or censored unless you have parental control, but even then it's like what is happening, you know? So I think it's an interesting journey, but as we do come to a close, okay, it's interesting because I've asked everyone off camera, but I feel like you're going to have a good answer.
Oh no, that's
you'll have a good answer. Okay, if you could title this episode Overcoming Blank, and maybe it's your journey, maybe it's where you are now, what would you title it?
Oh my gosh. Overcoming. Oh my gosh, girl, that's so much pressure.
It's not.
What would you title it?
This is you. Everyone is titling their own episode.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Just everybody else gets to do it off camera.
Because I know you're smart and capable.
Oh, no. what about overcoming hills and valleys? Because something I leaned on a lot was like, how many times do I look to God in the valley, which is always, right? Yeah. Like when we're down on our knees, the only place we can look is up, right?
Yes.
But we're on the hill. How do we respond? So like for me, I think about that right now, like, okay, I'm healthy.
Yeah.
I'm back to work fully. I'm honestly in the height of my career at this point, thus far in life. Yeah. I am in, if you picture cut, like resume, like all these things, it's like, okay, I'm at the top, and am I looking to God to still provide? Like, but there are still so many valleys, obviously, that we're facing, like looking into adoption, but it's like, look at how fast that's gone. Yeah. Am I, the second that things go well, am I still praising God, or am I looking to myself? And so that's a huge thing for me right now is like, how am I navigating, how am I overcoming the hills and the valleys as I'm going through this? Because my life should not be, there's a verse in the Bible, Garrett and I were talking about this the other day, that talks about being easily tossed by the waves. Yeah. And I don't want life to determine how I respond. I don't want my circumstances to define how I respond. Yes. I want God to define how I respond. So whether I'm on the hill, am I praising God? Am I the same person as I was when I was going through the valley? Or am I two different people? So I want to be the same person regardless of what I'm facing. And so I appreciate that you said that you would have never known. Oh my God. Because that's huge for me. Like I never want someone to look at me and be like, she's a different person when she's on top versus when she's in a valley, or, you know, vice versa. Yeah. I want to be the same person all the time.
I knew you could handle it.
There's a lot of pressure.
No, because you were just so amazing, honestly. Like just a light that when you walk into every room, honey, we know Sarah's here. That's the nice light is here.
They're like, oh no, she's back.
No, stop. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I had to do this episode a lot different. So at the end, because I don't have my notes, so I typically like ask people like this or that questions. Okay, it's okay. I don't have my notes. Oh, so man. Okay, I'm gonna try to remember some of them. Okay, and we can see what we got here. Okay, I think I remember. Would you prefer to eat Chick-fil-A or eat Wendy's?
Chick-fil-A.
Okay, that really wasn't a good one. That wasn't really a good comparison. Okay. Would you rather go swimming or diving?
Diving freaks me out. Like, are we talking scuba diving?
Oh my God. The fact that you don't want to go on any excursions, like I'm pulling you off the beach and we're going to go literally like
no girl.
Dirt bike riding, all those things.
There are not times in my life I get to lay around and relax. Oh my gosh. So I'm doing that. Catch me by the pool. Catch me at the swim up bar.
Oh my gosh.
Not on excursions doing anything.
Okay.
I'm serious. Garrett always tries and I'm like, you can go. I'm going to be here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there were some other serious ones. I think it was, would you prefer someone to communicate with words or actions?
That's really tough for me. I need both.
See?
Because I'm a words of affirmation love language. Like Same. That's high on my list. But also, if
I need to see it.
Yeah, I need to see it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I think you can do both.
I think you can do both too.
Yeah, because I'm like, if you say you're going to do something, I need you to live up to it.
Right.
Because I'm going to do it. If I say I'm going to do it, I want you to know that. I want you to trust me to know I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you rather see the future or live in the now?
Live in the now. Can you imagine if you would have told me at 15 that I was going to have cancer by the time I was 28? I would have said, no.
Nope. Bye. Not this girl. Not this girl. Not wrong story.
We're not 0 out of 10 do not recommend. Like, I'm staying in the know.
My gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Another thing I do too is like, I want people to leave here with something as far as like something that's tangible. So resources, books, whether it's scripture, whatever you want to offer resource wise, like what do you recommend? What books, anything?
For me, one of the life-changing Bible studies I did was called, Renewed, I think. I know the girl's name is
about that one.
Yeah, Heather Dixon. Yeah, I did tell you about it. Heather Dixon. And then she also has another one called Determined that I loved. That's how I found the one that the Renewed one.
Yeah.
But it talks about finding the joy when you don't like your story. And I loved it.
Send it to me, and I'll put the link in the description.
It was. You can find it on.
You can find it in the link.
I'd like to know it.
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
I don't know, girl. I'm trying to figure out all this like YouTube terminology in the description below.
Subscribe and follow.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But yeah, so that one really carried me through. And then Priscilla Schreier.
Yes, you did tell me about her.
She has one called Elijah.
Yeah.
And the whole study is talking about how Elijah was taken to this place, and I'm going to butcher the name. It starts with a C, but he was taken to this place that was deserted, barren, and how God utilized him to prepare him through his Charinth. Is that right? Whatever. You'll find out. I'll Google it. I'll describe it. I'll leave
the link in the description.
But it talks about how Elijah was really put to the test. He was called to do something. He went with knowing no food, no water, nothing, this deserted place that literally is like a desert, and how God prepped and prepared him to be able to change to spread God's word, basically. But he was alone. He was isolated. He literally didn't know when he was going to have food or water again, and he just had to trust God fully through this time. Yeah. And that was like what I felt like, that I was going through this deserted time by myself, and like in this time that it's like, is God going to pull me out? Is he not? And that just, again, going back to biblical ways that I felt like God really used those people. It was like, well, that's relevant still today, even though that was so long ago. Like that is still relevant to me now because I'm going through the same thing.
Definitely.
Like, so those were two that were huge for me. And then, I mean, this isn't a resource, but genuinely find the thing that you're passionate about to where you can like release that negativity. So for me, it was music, obviously. Yeah. Journaling, moving my body when I felt able to. Spending time with my kid, even though he drives me crazy because he's 3, you know, like all those things, like figuring out the things that brought joy in every day so that I could continue to be joyful. Like, is it my morning cup of coffee? And then not compromising on those things. So not compromising on when I spend time with God, or not compromising on the fact that I have to have 30 minutes of exercise. Now, that's my one thing that's like my self-care, and just figuring out what that is, because every person's is different. Whatever you don't compromise on so you can take care of yourself is so important.
Yeah. I just think that like you touching on really finding your passion is like, people don't just say that. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to find it, because when life hits you, or just when things don't go your way, like you have to have a space to breathe.
Absolutely.
And it's like, for me, like, this was my space.
Yeah, I love that.
You know?
And you're doing it.
Oh my God. It's so much fun. And it's just, and it's only going up from here, you know? Because honestly, like, deep down I could be like, oh, I can't wait to get here. But I'm learning to just like enjoy the journey. You know what I mean? Like enjoy like being your own cameraman and just like doing all the things, because like when you do have a team, it's like, I don't want to take for granted the times that like I can and I'm capable to do all the things myself. So I honestly didn't realize it was that important to me until I'm like, no, I have to create a space where I can breathe. Like, and I'm so full. You know, like to where
what fills
like
your cup.
Like I'm not even hungry, you know? It was so funny. Like, Michael saw me one time when we first put this together, and he was like, because I'm always the type of person to ask for food, literally, like almost every 30 minutes. I'm like, what's for dinner? What's for lunch? You know? And so one day, like, I was just like in my like zone editing, and he was like, you haven't asked for food in a while.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? You know? So, but yeah.
That's so fun. I love that so much. And I'm so happy for you.
And I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm
and
happy to be here.
I'll put her Instagrams and all the things in the description below.
Feels so weird. Hashtag influencer.
Creator. Look.
Content creator.
Content creator.
I can't.
Oh my gosh. But I do appreciate you. And so if you guys want to follow Sarah on her journey, I will put her description and her links and all the things in the description below. But that's all we have for you today. And tune in next week for a new episode.
Yay.
Yay.
Mercy fills the street.